Dada is a completely different response to the First World War from what we've seen in Germany and Great Britain. So Dada is a loose art movement that starts in Zurich in 1916. It's a group of artists and performers who see the war as completely absurd, and they flee to Switzerland in order not to fight in it. And they believe that through humor and shock, they will shock audiences into recognizing the complete contradictions of European culture and that the war will end. So it starts in Zurich. After the war, it spreads across the continent and also to New York City. Each city has its own different practice. We're going to be looking primarily at its practice in France and a little bit in Germany too, but we have to start in Zurich, where it was primarily a literary and artistic movement. There's a lot of emphasis on performance. So on this slide, I've got two images of the war. On the left, this is a staged image of German soldiers that appeared in Der Weltspiegel, which means the World Mirror. It's a German magazine and it's a propaganda image, and it's meant to show, oh, look at how organized our soldiers are. This is how neat and tidy things are at the front. On the right is a photograph that the German artist John Hartfield took of No Man's Land. And he's saying this is what war really looks like. This is what the hero's death actually looks like. And so these artists are looking at what's happening in World War I, where there were casualties on an unprecedented scale, largely because of developments like the machine gun and the airplane with aerial bombs, the tank. Let's see what else. Barbed wire, gas, all sorts of awful ways that people are dying on scales that had never happened before. And for what? Most people weren't even entirely sure what everybody was fighting for in the end. So these artists that refused to fight, they moved to Zurich and they try to protest the war through these really absurd actions. So we'll be looking at some of them. So one of the places in Zurich where they are doing their performances is this place called the Cabaret Voltaire. And this is a photograph of the artist Hugo Ball reciting a poem called A Song Without Words. And it was all just gibberish. And he's dressed up like a lobster, and apparently like he could barely walk when he was wearing this, and he sort of waddles on the stage. And people in the audience were so angry that they actually gang rushed the stage because he just was up there talking gibberish. They thought they were going to come and like see a nice show, and instead it was this weird man in a lobster costume saying nonsense words, and this made them really angry. So the Dadaists are kind of like, if you're angry that I'm saying gibberish in this show, why aren't you angry that people are getting plowed down by machine guns, a few hundred miles away? But this like absurd and random, this is what they're emphasizing. You see it in the visual arts as well. So this is a collage produced by Hans Arp. It's arranged according to the laws of chance. So he said he just picked these pieces up and dropped them on the floor, and wherever they landed, that's where he made his image. And so he's emphasizing the haphazard, accidental nature of all of it. And I've got a nice quote from him on the right. He says, "Disgusted by the butchery of the 1914 World War, we in Zurich devoted ourselves to the arts. While the guns rumbled in the distance, we sang, painted, made collages, and wrote poems with all our might. We were seeking an art based on fundamentals to cure the madness of the age, and a new order of things that would restore the balance between heaven and hell." And so they're hopeful that in disrupting the norms, maybe that could be a way of disrupting the war as well. After the war, most people go back to their home cities. And it's at this point that publications become really important. The first publication takes place before the war ends. It's in 1916, and it's called the Cabaret Voltaire, just like the cafe where they performed. And Hugo Ball says that its mission was to clarify the intentions of this cabaret. Its aim to remind the world that there are people of independent minds beyond war and nationalism who live for different ideals. The appearance of this publication really sets the stage for the later ones. So this is a later publication. This is Dada number 3. The cover is produced by Tristan Tzara, who was based in Zurich. And you can see that it's, I mean, it kind of looks like a mess, right? You've got this diagonal text going across. It's a quote from Descartes, but it actually goes over the masthead of the magazine. The editor of the magazine, his name's right in the middle, but his name is smaller than the price. There's a random woodcut over here. And then over here, just in kind of diagonals, like there's no clear layout happening. And this, I mean, you can just, if it's disruptive to you right now, imagine what this was like in 1918. So this is the interior. And you can see that he's just putting lots of different typefaces in lots of different places. It's not easy to read. There's no clear rhyme or reason. And so this is in line with what we were seeing in their performances. And so Tzara is writing here, he says, Dada, the abolition of logic, the dance of the impotence of creation, the abolition of all social hierarchies and equations, the abolition of memory, abolition of archaeology, abolition of the prophets, abolition of the future. So it's very nihilist. It's all about, you know, the world's ending, and so we're going to try and do something different. So after people go back to their home cities, Tzara moves to Paris, and he produces this bulletin, Dada. You can see some of the same strategies, if you will, in effect. So here's the masthead taking up half the page, overprinted by the table of contents, which looks normal, but then that has diagonal printing going across it. This margin is filled with information about the publication location. This says it's a program, so it's very random, and it's supposed to be. That's the entire point. It should remind you of some of the industrial design we looked at, right? This seemingly haphazard choice of typeface, haphazard arrangement on the page, no intention in how they're doing it. It's supposed to be shocking and surprising, in the same way that we talked about the Siege of Troy being effective simply because of the way that it would surprise you and capture your attention. That's what the Dada artists are going for as well. So very briefly, I want to talk about Dada in Berlin. In Berlin, after the war, you can imagine everything is awful. And a lot of what they're doing is responding to contemporary political factions. So at this point, there's open war, honestly, between the fascists, the communists, and everything in between. The Dadaists tend to be more communist, but what's important about here is they start using photo montage in a very avant-garde way. This is the first exhibition of Dada art. It's called the First International Dada Fair in Berlin. And you can see some similar strategies to the publications. They have like random texts on the board, on the walls. This is a German uniform on a dummy with the head of a pig. They got in trouble for that. It got shut down. But down here, this is the artist Hannah Höch, who pioneers photo montage in her work in Berlin. So there's a great video that I have for you to watch on this. This is her cut with the kitchen knife. It's a really fantastic photo montage that's it's interesting. It's much bigger than you think it's going to be. But I want you to watch the video, and that does a better job of breaking down the different objects that she uses here. But again, like when you think about Dada, really think about like haphazard, crazy, irrational, just everything everywhere, no order whatsoever. And the last thing I want to show is another Dada publication. This one seems to be more carefully organized, if you will, than the other ones we saw by Tristan Tzara. I guess not that it would take much, but you can see that he, at the very least, has like a way of organizing the space using like margins. He has an arrow pointing to here, but then still some disruptive stuff like this text going across the image there with just this like red right underneath it as it crosses over that central axis. Anyway, this is it for Dada and graphic design. Go watch that Hannah Hoch movie. I think you'll enjoy it. Well, it's not a movie. It's only like 5 minutes long, I swear. Anyway, that's it.